Hello guys, this is your friend. We are back with a new fanfic. Which is what if Orochimaru got the responsibility of watching over Naruto instead of Jiraiya and Tsunade, Part 1. And if you enjoy this fanfic, then please press the like button and subscribe to my channel for more fanfic like this. And now let's start a new fanfic. Today was October 11th, the day after the Kyuubi no Kitsune attacked Konohagakure, and things weren't going well for those inside the village. Especially for the formerly retired newly reappointed village leader, Hiruzen Sarutobi, who was sequestered in his regained office with an upset blonde infant boy resting in a basket with a blanket. I can't believe it. Did they really have that little faith in Minato's skill or humanity? Is something wrong, sensei? An almost eerie but not unconcerned voice asked from behind him. Ah, Orochimaru, it's good you came by. The elder Hokage said as he opened the window and let his pale student inside, who was dressed as a normal Junin. And yes, something is indeed wrong. But first, do you think you can reach Jiraiya or Tsunade really soon? Orochimaru shook his head. Sorry. You know Jiraiya is too wrapped up in his spy network to just come here all of a sudden. And need I say anything about Tsunade? At least try. Tell them they've got a new responsibility that requires they return here ASAP. The snake Sanin sighed. I can try, but forgive me if I don't have the best confidence in what my teammates will do about it. But before I even try to, tell me what the new responsibility is first. Sarutobi nodded, knowing it would be pointless for Orochimaru to explain something to the others he himself didn't know anything about. All right, you see that young boy? He pointed to the sleeping infant. Orochimaru nodded. That's Minato's son, Naruto. Naruto Namikaze. I'm assuming it means maelstrom, not fish paste cake, right? Correct. But he won't be called Namikaze. He'll have his mother's maiden name Uzumaki instead. Orochimaru blinked. What for? Well, in the last war, Minato killed off a large number of Iwa ninja as if it was nothing. And they're very angry at the humiliation they've received for it. If Iwa knew Minato had a living relative, they may seek out his blood and go to extreme measures for it. We can't afford to risk such an attack now or in the foreseeable future, so if his name is different, neither him or the village will be in trouble for it. Sounds good on the surface, but are you gonna keep this a secret from everyone in Konoha too? Sarutobi nodded. Yes. People can't reveal a secret they don't know. So until he's the proper age, he and everyone else must remain ignorant of his heritage. Him too. Why? Orochimaru asked, not seeing the logic. Kids tend to brag about themselves or their families to sound important amongst other kids. If he's ignorant too, then he can't draw too much attention to himself. Sarutobi explained. So Minato's son will have to live like a normal person. Who's going to raise him? Minato and Kushina listed Jiraiya and Tsunade as the child's godparents. Orochimaru looked surprised. Really? Why? Because they both knew and trusted your teammates, Orochimaru. It wasn't personal. Oh, I know that. And I already have a godchild. Remember Daisuke Mitarashi? Orochimaru asked. Sarutobi nodded, having seen the pale Sanin being friends with the named Junin and his family. Sadly, he and his wife died yesterday, but they entrusted me with caring for their daughter in such an event. That's good, and Minato thought Jiraiya and Tsunade would be good for Naruto. If you can ask them to come here, that would be best. Orochimaru sighed. I can try, sensei, but remember, I don't have confidence they'll cooperate. I'll be as quick as I can, but while I'm gone, can you watch over Anko-chan for me, please? Sarutobi nodded, not seeing a problem with supervising a 6-year-old for a bit. He could make some ninjas watch over her as a D-rank mission if he needed to focus elsewhere. Orochimaru then left the building and then the village to find his teammates. They were good at hiding from those looking for them, but since he was their teammate, he would have an easier time than others. But that didn't guarantee anything. 3 days later, Orochimaru returned to the Hokage Tower, empty-handed and alone. The first thing he saw when he answered were a bunch of irritated civilians and even a few ninjas too. One of them, a ninja wearing his Hitai-8 over his left eye, approached him. Ah, one of the Sannin is here. Perhaps you could make Hokage-sama sensible again. Sensible? Orochimaru asked, beyond confused. If there was one thing the so-called professor wasn't, it was insensible. Yeah, he's been hiding up in his office for over a day and being foolish by preventing us from doing our duty. Orochimaru didn't like any of this, and even less when murmurs from the gathered people said things like, kill, and demon. As far as he knew, the Kyuubi had already been taken care of, so what was all the commotion about? He didn't say anything, just walked past them. The group let him pass with pleasure, figuring he was going to take care of the problem himself. Orochimaru stopped in front of the door, well aware there had to be a seal to prevent entry. So he summoned a snake and had it slip into the vents that led into the room. Come in, Orochimaru. I'm glad you're back. Sarutobi called out after 3 minutes, knowing only one person would gain his attention with a snake that knew not to attack. The seal briefly gave out and Orochimaru entered, closing the door quickly so the seal could reactivate before anyone took the opportunity to barge in. As soon as he entered, a young girl with long loose purple hair barreled into him. Orochi Jizan. Thank Kami you're back. She was clearly crying. What's wrong, Anko-chan? He asked the sobbing child. He noticed the crib next to the desk and the infant inside was asleep but didn't look comfortable. And now he could see whisker marks on the boy's face. So many bad people were here, trying to hurt the baby. They said so many bad things about him. They tried to hurt me too. Orochimaru's eyes widened and he gave his old teacher a look that said, please tell me this is not true. Sarutobi's sigh and closing his eyes did nothing to comfort his student. I'm afraid it's true. Once the council learned what had transpired with Naruto, they ordered his immediate execution. The civilians took the bait almost completely and even some of the shinobi have too. Why would they order that? Orochimaru all but shouted, momentarily forgetting he had a child beside him. Well, Minato got rid of the Kyuubi by sealing it away inside Naruto, at the cost of his life. I told them this so they'd know not to be afraid of a repeat attack by the beast and that the child should be considered a hero for bearing such a burden, but right away they craved his blood. Apparently they either believe the infant is simply the fox turned into a helpless child, or Minato did this specifically so the child could be killed, thus killing the fox with it. Orochimaru wanted to throw up. Once in a while he had curious thoughts that others could consider vile, but this was barbaric. So the council that has always worked with Minato actually believes that he would wish a newborn to die just to solve a problem. And if not that he was powerful enough to change the great fox demon into a human but not strong enough to actually kill it. With all due respect, sensei, my snakes have eaten things smarter than that. I've tried telling them the same, but they just can't see any other possibility. A few ninja have already tried to kill him at their beckoning, one being Minato's own student, claiming that's what Minato would have done if the demon hadn't killed him. If this keeps up, my hair's going to go gray faster. I've kept him here since then, and Anko-chan's been adamant about protecting him too since she's been here. For the first time, Sarutobi smiled. You should be proud of her. She took a kunai to the shoulder to protect him. Orochimaru looked down at his godchild again and saw her tenderly touch her right shoulder. With the shirt in the way, he couldn't see the bandage around it, but didn't need to. He bent down and hugged his friend's daughter. Good girl, Anko-chan. And at least you didn't get hurt worse. Orochimaru, any news regarding Jiraiya and Tsunade? Sarutobi asked. The snake Sannin tore himself away from the little girl. Sadly no, sensei. I couldn't locate either. I checked all the nearest hot spring resorts, casinos and bars, but got nothing. I might have searched more, but my gut told me to get back here. And I'm glad I did. Sarutobi took a puff from his pipe. This is bad. If we can't get at least one of those two back here soon, Naruto might not last much longer. Then I'll take him in for now. Sarutobi blinked but didn't look surprised or objected. But don't you already have Anko-chan to watch over? And you were never officially declared a possible guardian for Naruto. If two Sanins aren't available, then who better than the one that is? Good point. The Sandaime agreed. But still, won't having two children interfere with your work? Orochimaru tended to work with the ninja R&D division like the Naras and Akimichis when he wasn't on missions, hoping to find ways to give their shinobi advantages over others. By now some rather unscrupulous ideas and theories had come to mind for him and he was half willing to try them out to see if they could work. No more than one would. Besides, it won't be permanent. Tsunade may decide she's gone off on her own long enough soon and decide to settle down back here. And sooner or later Jiraiya has to come back to tell you the results of his snooping. I can watch him in the meantime. After all, I don't see anyone else volunteering that you know won't try to kill him. Sarutobi couldn't argue that point. Very well, Orochimaru. I'll allow you to be Naruto's guardian and caretaker until such time that his designated godparents can do the job instead. Also, I'm creating a few laws for Naruto's protection. No one will be allowed to talk about sealing away the Kyuubi or Naruto's connection to it. So none of the younger generation will be taught anything except that the Kyuubi was beaten by the Yondaime, with the exception of Anko-chan here for obvious reasons. This way, maybe he can live a normal life among his peers. That requires a lot of faith in the people of this village sensei. And if what I saw outside is any sign, this boy's still going to have a hard time fitting in. Especially if the parents tell their children to stay away from him. Orochimaru commented. We'll have to cross that bridge when we come to it and hope he can gain some friends that'll see him for him. Sarutobi said, not sounding as confident as he wanted to, which Orochimaru easily noticed. With nothing else to say, Orochimaru thanked his teacher, grabbed Naruto and Anko, and left the building through the window. No way he was going to walk through that crowd again holding the whiskered infant. He took the two to his small modest home and set up a futon and crib in his guest room. Sorry, but you two will have to share a room for a little bit. Anko nodded. That's okay, Orochi-jisen. I've been sleeping in the office with him and the old man since you left. You aren't going away again so soon, are you? Orochimaru shook his head. No, not until things here get settled for you two. I need to see just how many are going to try to hurt him, and you just because you know him. Again, protecting him was a very good thing to do. Anko smiled. He's cute, especially with those whiskers. I guess he is. I hope that's not the only reason you helped him. Anko shook her head. Nope. I thought he might be able to be that little brother I always wanted. And if he's staying here with me, he really is. Orochimaru smiled. I guess you're right. And as the big sister, you need to be there to keep him safe if someone tries that again. Try not to get yourself killed though, and get me if things get ugly. I sure hope this works out until those two get here. Orochimaru thought. 2 years have passed since Naruto was born, and they hadn't been pleasant years for him. Even though he was too young to ever remember all of this time, his foster family would never forget it. Everything that happened or almost happened to Naruto, they either softened or took in his place, and while it hurt, in a way it brought them all closer. Tsunade still had not come back to the village or been confirmed seen in that time. Jiraiya had come back a few times to make his reports but never stayed long enough to actually do anything about his responsibility to Naruto, even see him. At times Orochimaru seriously wondered if the peeping Tom was even aware of it or Naruto. Sarutobi told him otherwise though a few months ago. I managed to inform him about Minato's son being alive and reminded him of his duty. The Sandaime had explained to his one remaining student. He says he can't simply stop what he's doing since it would take too long to get restarted once he had free time again and he's onto something potentially vital to Konoha's safety. He doesn't like this, but feels it's best to just let things stay as they are for now. It wasn't that Orochimaru really minded having to care for Naruto, although the frequent feedings and diaper changes in the beginning had been a hassle. Outside that, he liked the boy. The sheer playful innocence of the child was a welcome change to having to deal with shinobi matters all day long, with people that long ago forgot what innocence was. And the youthful curiosity reminded him why he got into R&D in the first place, to help young ninja improve their chances of returning home alive. Over time, the concept of lengthening a ninja's lifespan sounded more tempting, and if he ever figured out a promising way, he might try it out. But now it wouldn't be just for his own benefit. Naruto and Anko both helped the pale Sannin a lot in his personal life. Because of his snake-like appearance and albinoish complexion, Orochimaru never really had much of a social or romantic life. All of his friends were business friends he occasionally hung out with when off duty. Like his teammates or Anko's parents. So he had basically given up on love or having a family of his own long ago. Having Anko and Naruto around filled the void he figured he'd just tolerate for the rest of his life, and in a way he considered them the children he never had. Anko still called him Jisun, though, and Naruto would too when he saw him. One time as a 1-year-old he hissed instead, making both Orochimaru and Anko laugh a lot. Anko missed her parents but liked her foster uncle and brother. She was aware him being with them wasn't intended to be permanent, but decided Naruto was going to be her brother no matter what. She proved it by taking several fists and cuts for defending him or just by being associated with him. The first few were adults which were arrested for child endangerment, but after the rest learned they encouraged their children. Many were reluctant, especially those that knew Anko before, but not all, so she became victimized all over again. Her only response? Better me than Otudo. Orochimaru was livid about all this. Even more so when one of the babysitters early on tried to kill them both. Anko had to use a kitchen knife to cut the sitter's Achilles tendon before they could do worse than put a few bruises on them both. The sitter tried to press charges, but since Sarutobi handled the case, the sitter had a restraining order against the residents and occupants since then and community service. After that, he never left them with anyone without a shadow clone or a snake summon nearby. He simply couldn't trust anyone to be near them without him. At the moment, Anko, who was 8 years old now, was practicing out in her house's backyard while Naruto took a nap inside their room. The two still shared a room, which made it easier for her to defend him if anything should happen. Anko was throwing some kunais at human-shaped boards to improve her aim for certain spots, a point Orochimaru told her was vital to perfect for her. After she threw them, her personal summons Kogyoku, which Orochimaru had arranged to be permanently summoned to defend the girl until she was older, would retrieve them for her. Naruto had one too, a snake called Sango that was watching him like a guard dog at the moment. Both snakes were venomous and could become as large as boas if they had to. The only way to tell them apart was Kogyoku was purple with red spots down her back and Sango was orange with black streaks. Naruto was probably the only toddler in the world that wasn't afraid of a snake. Kogyoku had brought Anko her weapons back when she tensed up. Something wrong? Do you hear that buzz? Anko quietly asked. Kogyoku listened. Luckily, as a summons, she had some skills normal snakes didn't, such as being able to hear like humans could rather than just vibrations through the ground. Yeah, I do. Sounds like bees or something. Soon they both noticed a large swarm of dangerous-sounding small insects flying towards their house and settling around the closed window of the kids' room. They couldn't get in thanks to a few rudimentary seals Orochimaru knew, but they weren't going to stop trying. Anko and Kogyoku almost hid until they saw the bugs weren't after them, just Naruto obviously. Problem was there was nothing either of them could do about it, except one possibility. Kogyoku saw Anko pull out her emergency paper bomb kunai and stopped her before she could use it. No, don't. It won't get rid of all of them and you'll just make it easier for them to get inside. What should I do then? Before the purple snake could answer, a mysterious person dressed like an Anbu agent came up behind them and knocked Anko out. Kogyoku grew to the size of a python and constricted herself around the intruder, only for him to replace himself with a log. With only one thing left to do, Kogyoku dragged Anko into a safe spot outside the house, got smaller, and darted to Orochimaru's office as fast as she could. Orochimaru, one of the heads of Konoha's R&D department, was going over some proposals for funds to explore researching new ideas and why they were advisable. Many were, but they had to be prioritized first. I've got requests for extra protein supplements to the Akamichis. Well, they may have to use their own funds if possible. This guy wants to see if one can find a way to siphon off another's chakra like a parasite, handy, but maybe risky. This guy wants to see what would happen if cells from someone with a Kekkei Genkai were introduced into the body of someone without one. I'm intrigued. And this guy, Amachi wants to try new terrain to test possible physical adaptability. Claims to be very promising. Before Orochimaru could make a decision on anything, Kogyoku came in through the air duct. Orochimaru-sama. Danger at the house. He took the snake into his hands and shushined away without a word. When he showed up in front, he immediately rushed inside and heard hissing coming from the kid's room. He went in to see Naruto sleeping, ignorant of the trouble, but Sengo was large and looking outside. Kogyoku left Orochimaru to go check on Anko. Sengo, what happened? A large swarm of bugs, acting like they were on a mission, tried to get in. And some Anbu knocked Anko-chan out but got away before Kogyoku-ne-san could punish them. Sounds like an Aburame, but why would they do this? They've never had a problem with us before. Apparently one does. The orange snake stated hastily. Orochimaru frowned. I'm bringing this up to the Hokage. Sarutobi knew what to expect when his pale student entered his office. Well, what happened now, Orochimaru? Sensei, things are getting out of hand. The clans are now starting to act out against Naruto. They've kept their distance, probably to avoid offending me, but now a confirmed attack from an Aburame shows this situation isn't getting better. A confirmed attack? How many ninjas use insect swarms? Orochimaru sarcastically asked. I see. The Sandaime responded. But can you confirm the individual? No, I cannot. But I know this won't be the last time. Sensei, I know you've done what you can for the boy, but I'm seriously reconsidering whether or not this is the best environment for him. For either of them. Sarutobi blinked. Orochimaru, that can't be done. It's not safe for them out there. It's not safe for them in here either. If anything, it's worse. Orochimaru shouted angrily. You've put in so much effort to keep Naruto from having enemies outside the village, but you keep forgetting he has them inside it too. I forget nothing, Orochimaru. Sarutobi countered sternly. I am not oblivious to the torment that has been going on at your household. Have you forgotten that all those arrested have suffered for their crimes? You have helped, but those not arrested just find new ways to hurt them. Usually through their own children. Are you aware that none of the parents will let their kids play with Anko-chan anymore? Just because she's the demon's sister. She used to have a whole network of friends, now I can count the number of kids that still dare to talk to her on one hand. And do you honestly think Naruto will be in a better situation when he's older? Does this sound like a healthy environment for them? No, but I can't very well tell parents how to raise their children nor the children to disobey their parents. Orochimaru folded his arms. Not only that, but many of the merchants are trying things too. Anko-chan can barely buy anything unless I'm right there with her, since they won't dare overcharge or deny me, and I know the situation won't be any different when Naruto's older. You think it's good for them to be in a town that denies them fair prices or maybe the right to shop even if they can pay? Sarutobi didn't answer, mostly because he knew his student had more to say. Sensei, I've gone to a lot of trouble to ensure the safety of those two. I even have snakes around them 24/7, and I could only do that by giving Manda 4 living scarafuses, which I got thanks to your order. Sarutobi nodded in recollection. 4 Anbu were found guilty of trying to murder the 2 children by arson, and he allowed Orochimaru to execute the punishment. While brutal, at least some good came out of it in the form of snake guardians. Sensei, I'm seriously considering that this is not the best place for them to live. Orochimaru, your concern is admirable, Sarutobi started. Spare me the bullshit, sensei. I know you're going to try to convince me they're better off here. Give me one good reason why I should let them stay here any longer rather than just take them away. Simple. Sarutobi stated. Minato sacrificed his life so his son could protect this village. If you take him away from it, it will make his sacrifice meaningless. If the villagers keep trying to kill him, it'll have the same results. Orochimaru countered. If Minato could speak to you right now, what would he say? I don't know. Maybe he'd agree with you, maybe he wouldn't. The council and citizens here have been trying to speak for Minato so much since his death, I'm almost afraid to now. But consider this, Orochimaru, you're only the acting guardian of Naruto. Jiraiya and Tsunade are still the ones with majority say regarding his whereabouts, and Jiraiya thinks that. Shut the up, sensei. Now Orochimaru looked pissed. How can you possibly have the nerve to say that? You actually expect me to believe that Jiraiya's opinion of Naruto's well-being outclasses mine, the one who has actually been raising the boy for the past 2 years? The man hasn't even seen Naruto in that time, and he's the one who knows best. He's not the one who's taken hits for the boy, nor has he fed or clothed or sheltered him. Hell, sensei, you know as well as I do Anko-chan and I are the only ones who have any real claim to be the boy's family. Well, I can't argue that, but still, give the village another chance for the children to fit into. For my sake, if nothing else. Orochimaru sighed. Fine, sensei, I'll try to tolerate this a little more. But if nothing changes for the better, I will do something about it, with your permission or not. Sarutobi slowly nodded in acceptance. Very well. Tell them. Hi. For me. Orochimaru nodded and then poofed away, revealing he had been a shadow clone the whole time. Guess he's getting even more protective of them both. Does that make him a mother hen snake? So no luck? Danzo asked from within his secret chamber. Sorry, Danzo-sama, but the residence is better guarded than previously anticipated. Torunoburame, a bug-wielding member of Root, answered. Damn, I figured that a Sannin would make sure his abode would be secure, but apparently he did better than I thought. Danzo mumbled in his head. But I want that tool. If I can't get it by force, maybe I have to try a different approach. A few days later, without attacks, Orochimaru had a visitor come to him at his office. Ah, Danzo-san, what brings you here today? Orochimaru had always tried to be civil to the crippled council member, mainly because the Warhawk had always supported the R&D department to improve shinobi abilities, but that didn't mean Orochimaru trusted him. After all, this guy had been the only member of the civilian council to not order Naruto's death, and Orochimaru did not believe the man was just being compassionate back then. Well, Orochimaru, I have a proposition for you. You see, I've heard from a colleague of mine that you're experimenting on the introduction of Kekkei Genkei into new hosts. And I've come AC. Hold on a second. Orochimaru interrupted. A colleague told you? I haven't discussed that with anyone, and I haven't even approved the start of the experiment. My source must have been the researcher to submit the request then. I was under the impression that it had already been approved. Danzo calmly answered. Orochimaru narrowed his eyes. What goes on here isn't meant to be discussed with those outside to keep our secrets safe. You of all people, Danzo, should know the value of keeping secrets. You have no idea how right you are. Danzo quickly thought. Well, back to what I was saying, I had chanced upon some stored DNA of the Shodai Hokage. And as you know, your teammate Tsunade Senju is the last known of that bloodline, and it's dormant in females. And she's also reached the age where conception is almost impossible, if not already impossible. A very useful Kekkei Genkei force could be lost forever, unless we seek a new means to keep it going. Orochimaru thought it over. Well, it sounds reasonable, but what if the subject rejects the new DNA? That's what experiments are for. Even so, I have multiple fields to explore and I can't give funding to them all. Danzo smiled. Tell you what, I'll supply the funds for this project and we'll use the Mokuden as the trial run. If we can succeed in getting a successful user, then we can someday acquire indefinite amounts of Kekkei Genkei for our village. And in return, Orochimaru asked, nothing at the moment. How about an IOU? Orochimaru did not like the sound of that. An IOU to this man was like having one to the Yakuza. But the idea he was proposing sounded enticing. Alright, we'll go forward with it. You'll have to supply us with about 3 million ryo up front though, and your IOU must be within reason. Danzo smiled like he got away with murder. Pleasure doing business with you, Orochimaru-san. Let's hope for the best. Another year went by and things sort of stabilized for the Orochi household. Attacks lessened but did not stop, and the civilians resorted to angry glares when they saw Naruto and Anko. Orochimaru had made it clear that any attacks would be returned just as badly to the attackers by himself personally, and Sarutobi said he had the rights to. Anko lost more and more friends because of their parents' prejudices or peer pressure, so now she was down to 2. The first was a girl named Kurenai Uehi, whose parents were more open-minded to the Jinchuriki and his situation. The second was an orphan boy named Kabuto Yakushi, recently brought to the village after being found alone in a battlefield and didn't mind the kids either. Neither were as lively as Anko usually was, but they could keep up with her. Naruto himself didn't have too many friends. It was hard to when most parents didn't want to bring their children over. Generally speaking, if Naruto's secret didn't keep them away, his snake guardian scared them off without even trying. Sango didn't like that, but she was sworn to protect him so she couldn't just leave him vulnerable. And it got tougher after the insect attack, since Orochimaru wouldn't let anyone from a clan enter his house without his personal approval and presence. So in short, only the Yamanaka, Nara, and Akamichi clan heads had their children come over because they trusted the Yondaime's skills and hoped their kids wouldn't be afraid of snakes later on. The Hyuga would have if they were more open to mingle with others, and the Uchihas deemed the whole issue unworthy of significance, their words. At the present time, a soon-to-be 3-year-old Naruto was hanging out at the Yamanaka flower shop with a 3-year-old Ino while Orochimaru and Anko were trying to find him a birthday present or two. Inoichi was watching the two kids have fun their own way in the back of the room while going over a newspaper and noticed nothing out of place. There were a few insects buzzing around, but that was normal for a place filled to the brim with flowers. But after a little bit the buzzing noise of insects got a little too loud to be normal and Inoichi got suspicious. The kids noticed it and got scared, looking to Inoichi to do something about it. He looked around sharply but saw nothing suspicious, but went for the cabinet and grabbed the pesticide to be sure. A large black swarm of insects massed together through the open windows and entered the unsealed building. Ino screamed and ran for her father. Naruto tried to as well, but the insects swiftly covered his body and started attacking him. He screamed and tried to swat them all off, but fell to the floor and his movements slowed. Sango could do nothing but watch and hate herself for it. Something's not right. Those aren't normal Aburame insects. Those just eat chakra, not sting and bite. These things are actually wounding Naruto. Inoichi thought, as horrified as he and his daughter looked. Ino tried to help swat them off, but her father grabbed her hand. No, don't. Those bugs will hurt you too. Use the spray too, Chan. Ino pleaded. I can't now. Naruto would get poisoned too. Naruto screamed again and his body glowed a faint red. The insects backed off bit but didn't leave his body or stop entirely. Unable to take the pain anymore, Naruto did the one thing any child in his situation would do, he ran. He didn't know where he was going or what he'd do when he got there, but he had to just run. The Yamanakas followed. Think he might like this, Jisen? Anko asked as she pointed to a play sword on display in a window. Orochimaru was about to answer, but any answer died on his tongue when he heard a familiar scream down the street. Anko heard it too and lost interest in the question entirely. Both looked down the street in hopes they were wrong. They saw a young child running around with a swarm of bugs clinging to him. A few passerby would try to beat the bugs off him, but they moved off on their own just enough to reveal who the child was. Once people saw, they either looked the other way, or kept beating him for a different reason. Orochimaru, Anko, and Kogyoku rushed to help him. They were a little relieved when an Anbu agent dropped by the boy and did a fireball jutsu. The bugs fled off the boy, leaving Naruto to take the brunt of the attack. Orochimaru and Anko were horrified by this, and even more so to see the Anbu didn't look repentant or even tempted to put out the flame. Although Orochimaru saw that last part more than Anko did. Orochimaru used a gentle wind jutsu to put out the flame while Anko yelled at the Anbu, crying in anger. "You jerk. You missed. That depends on where I was aiming." Anko gasped and then began hitting the masked ninja's legs, to which he reacted by kicking her off. She was undaunted by this and tried to attack again, but he simply left the area, seeing no reason to stick around anymore. But not before Kogyoku managed to give him a painful bite on his right calf. Before the insects could attack again, Orochimaru used a fire jutsu on them as intended and they were completely incinerated. He looked at Naruto and was very pissed, but not at Naruto, of course. The blonde boy had second-degree burns almost all over his arms and face, with the clothed areas only bearing first-degree burns, and was breathing heavily. "Ototo. Is he going to be okay, Jisun?" Anko asked tearily, on the verge of hysteria. Orochimaru carefully picked him up. "He will be. I know how to best help him. Anko-chan, get on my back. Kogyoku, go get Sango." The purple snake nodded and darted away while Anko got a hold of the snake Sanin's shoulders. He then darted off to a safe place for them all. Some civilians started to wonder if maybe the one Sanin still in town had been pushed too far. "That's it. I've had enough of this. Minato must be rolling around in his grave." Orochimaru angrily thought as he entered his house and placed Naruto down on the couch. The Kyuubi's chakra was already healing the young boy. And fortunately for him, he was unconscious by now. The two snakes entered the house a few moments later and got by the couch too. Anko, with tear-streaked cheeks and red eyes, hovered over her brother figure like a watchdog. "Jisun, what's gonna happen to him?" "He'll be fine, Anko-chan. He's already healing and should be as good as new by tonight." "What should we do about that bastard that burned him?" Anko asked, sounding a little more angry now. Orochimaru never bothered to enforce appropriate language for the kids since they heard offensive things almost daily anyway. "We'll see to him. And also whoever sent those bugs at him. That wasn't natural either. But first, I've got something bigger in mind." Anko blinked. "Like what, Jisun? This has gone on for far too long. Sarutobi-sensei can't bargain his way out of this. I'm going to make sure this stops once and for all." The snake Sanin stated with hostility and venom, and maybe a little glee at the last idea. Anko smiled. "Can I help?" "Absolutely. But we have to act tonight and you can't tell a soul." He told her, to which she nodded. "Good. Now go pack up everything you have. We're going on a little trip." "How long?" "Long enough." Anko looked worried about having to maybe leave her home and remaining friends for who knows how long. But after looking at Naruto one more time, she knew it was a matter of time before that happened to her too. And Orochimaru had never led her wrong before. "I'll be ready in a jiffy," she told him before heading for her room. "It won't be that easy, Master Orochimaru," Kogyoku commented. "Oh, I know that. That's why I'm going to put on a big show for Konoha and do a little damage too." The pale Sanin replied. "Like what?" Sengo asked. "Well, let's just say Konoha will learn what happens when you try to corner a viper," he told them with a sinister chuckle. "And best of all, since that meeting with the Kumo representatives is tonight, few will be available to interfere in my little scheme." Night came over Konoha, and it would be a night that shaped its future indefinitely. Most of the representatives of the clans were at a meeting with visitors from Kumo, hoping to arrange an alliance of sorts. The streets were deserted as people went home to sleep with night Anbu making their rounds. Overall, nothing ominous or unexpected. Sarutobi had called a brief break during the long discussion with the foreign ninjas so everyone could stretch their legs and use the restroom if needed. While he himself got a drink from a break room, an Anbu agent approached him. Hokage-sama, fire has just broke out at Orochimaru-sama's residence in the R&D department. Sarutobi frowned. Ah, this will end badly, I just know it. Thanks for alerting me. Tell my advisors and the clan heads I'm going to personally check this matter out and no decisions are to be confirmed without my presence. Hopefully this won't take too long. The old man then got into his combat outform and headed for Orochimaru's house, hoping to settle his student before he acted rash. Not that it wouldn't be uncalled for, he admitted. Sarutobi arrived at the Orochi household to see it burning to the ground. The Anbu that arrived with him began immediately putting it out with water jutsus. Once the fire was gone, they salvaged through the wreckage for any bodies. Sarutobi prayed they wouldn't find any. One of the Anbu captains came close to the elderly Hokage. Hokage-sama, there is little you can do here. Perhaps it would be more beneficial for you to investigate the other arson incident. So this is a confirmed arson? Sarutobi asked. Not that he doubted it, of course. Most likely, sir. Orochimaru-sama was a very skilled ninja, so this being just an accident is highly unlikely. My guess is someone with a few matches or something decided to act against the occupants and caught them off guard. Sarutobi nodded, having come to the same conclusion. I'm sorry for everything, Orochimaru, Anko. Naruto. At least you're out of your misery now. He sighed, then thought of something else. Wait, if this was just a stroke of luck, it would be too much of a coincidence for Orochimaru's lab to be struck at the same time. Something's going on here. I will go check out the other scene as you suggested. Take all bodies to the morgue or infirmary, whichever is appropriate for them. Sarutobi told the Anbu captain before heading off for the R&D building. Said Anbu returned to work with the others going through the wreckage. Find anything? No confirmed deaths yet, sir. A weasel-masked Anbu told him. Good. Let's hope it stays that way, or Hokage-sama will not be happy. When Sarutobi made it to the burning wing of the building, he didn't know what he expected to find. But he definitely didn't expect to find Orochimaru standing in the flames crying while all his work burned to ashes. Orochimaru, what is the meaning of this? Did you do this? The snake Sanin slowly turned to look at his mentor, eyes watering but as cold and hard as steel. No, sensei, I have done nothing. It's Konoha that has done all this. And maybe you by passive association too, but I won't hold you to it. What are you talking about? I should have done what I thought was best long ago, your please be damned. But because I felt I owed you, I stayed and kept Naruto here. And now, he's gone. Sarutobi paled. You don't mean. Orochimaru nodded. Another attack, this time a successful one. Ask the Yamanakas. They saw it too. Naruto was ambushed by some type of insect I've never seen before, making me think the Abarames have others besides their norms or someone else was framing them. Either way, that combined to someone setting my house on fire. Naruto didn't make it, and Anko-chan got caught in the flames. Not to mention, when all the civilians and even an Anbu wearing a pig mask saw him, they just added to his pain. I bet the Anbu started the fire since he used a fire jutsu on Naruto earlier today. Sarutobi sighed, feeling a wave of remorse and regret. Orochimaru, I'm sorry for your loss. Spare me the bullshit sentiment, sensei. I've warned you several times this could happen, and you always said no one would go that far. Well, guess what? They did, and my two godchildren are dead because you thought it was easier to not get involved more than you did. And I don't care what some legal form may say, Naruto was mine. And all my work for this village has been destroyed by someone else too. He spread his arms to better imply the fire going on around themselves. This is what Konoha has come to. Trying to kill a child and claiming he didn't deserve to even be conceived. And attacking those close to him for spite. This is the Konoha Minato died for. Naruto should not have had to suffer for this horrid place. Orochimaru. Sarutobi was now worried about what his student would do in retaliation. Sensei, I'm going to take a page out of Tsunade's book and tell them all to off. After tonight, not even you can give me reason to stay here even until the sun rises. I'm wiping my hands off Konoha as of now. Sarutobi knew he couldn't stop his student, and deep down he couldn't fault him for taking this course of action. Where will you go? What will you do? For the first time in this entire discussion, Orochimaru grinned. People can't tell a secret they don't know, sensei. If I don't know, I'll be forced to put you in the bingo book as a missing nin. Orochimaru scoffed. Like you did with Tsunade. The slug Sanin and her apprentice were probably the only registered ninja under Konoha that were not contained within the city and not classified as missing nin. Jiraiya wasn't classified that way because he was gone regularly for business in Tsunade's case, just leisure or apathy, maybe both, but she wasn't listed in the book. Tsunade is no threat to us. With you in this emotional state I can't promise anything. Sarutobi replied sternly. I will not ally myself with any enemy village sensei, but neither will I ally myself with this one anymore. So what are you going to do? Just wander around and wait to die? Oh, I'm in no hurry for death, never have been. But I'll find something to do to occupy myself. But it's none of your business, sensei. Now if you'll excuse me, all getting a little too hot in here. Orochimaru said before shushing away. Sarutobi did the same and the building continued to burn until Anbu arrived to put it out. Before the meeting with Kumo could resume, Sarutobi called the whole council together. Tonight, Naruto Uzumaki has been killed by some unknown arsonist. A few cheers from over half the council made him pause and flare up his ki to silence them. And because of that and the reaction I just witnessed, Orochimaru has cut all ties to the village. He can't do that. We need him here. A random civilian shouted. Sarutobi glared some more. Maybe you should have thought of that before encouraging all that mistreatment amongst the kids in his care. Both of them are dead now because of idiots like you all. Why the hell should he remain here to keep working for such a village? Would you? At least my child isn't a monster. Another random member commented, ignoring the Hokage's glare. Irregardless of how you all may see the situation, Orochimaru sees it as the final straw for his patience. He has no reason to help us anymore, and I probably wouldn't be surprised if he decided to do something drastic later on. Feel proud of yourselves, for you've helped us lose a valuable shinobi and possibly made several people you know targets of his wrath. And for what? Because you can't let go of a grudge no matter who the victim is. What a shining example of good leadership. But enough of this, let's just finish this meeting and call it a night. They all followed his lead, but several were already celebrating in their heads over the reported death of a blonde whiskered boy. Did it work? Anko asked as her foster uncle came into view from her hiding spot, a bunker outside the city walls designed for civilian safety in invasion times. Like a charm, Orochimaru told her as he ruffled her hair. By tomorrow morning, everyone will think you and Naruto are dead and I left grieving. We can find somewhere to live with no one looking for you too. And I can train you both to fight back like shinobi should. Anko smiled. She was glad for that. Orochimaru told her they were going to leave their home and not come back, she was a little frightened. Especially if Tracker Ninja tried to find them. He told her he was going to stage their deaths, and that way no one would hunt them. Everyone had to think that, even the Hokage, or it wouldn't work. And apparently it did. No more bad people. Well, no more from Konoha at least. There are still enemies outside, but they won't attack as much. Orochimaru-sama, is it true we can't go back? A young boy with white hair asked. Well, you could, but where would you go, Kabuto-kun? Orochimaru found the boy in the lab before the fire had started to attract Sarutobi. Apparently the boy had been the subject of a few experiences Danzo had been doing without Orochimaru's knowledge. He wasn't supposed to even be involved, but Danzo had his own agenda, and damn those that didn't go along with it. He had been trying to create many Kekkei Genkais, with just the Mokuden tests being a cover front. According to the results Orochimaru saw tonight, most subjects dies, but 2 young boys and 1 girl survived. One was about Anko's age named Yamato and he was a success in acquiring the Mokuden, and the only one at that. Kabuto had been the second boy and the subject of better than normal healing experiments, and they seemed to work too. The girl had been Kurenai, who had not been tested on yet but had been selected since she was Anko's friend. Her parents were killed 2 days ago, making her an orphan now. And according to the results, a second lab had been doing similar work under Danzo's orders, masked as Orochimaru's approval, in the land of the sea, being headed by researcher Orochimaru knew named Amachi. And he had some successes too. Orochimaru, already unnerved by the horrible treatment done to Naruto and Anko, became even more upset when this was revealed to him. His work was being usurped from him under the guise of his own approval, making it look like it was all his idea. There might have been a time he would it, but he was in no mood for it now. So he took the kids to a safe place, went back and set fire to the lab to destroy his notes, ensuring no one else could misuse his work, and waited for Sarutobi to show up and act his part. He lied about Naruto and Anko's death to ensure no one else would follow him, believing him to have left in grief rather than protecting the children. Back at the present, Orochimaru let everyone who had been hiding come back outside. If you want to go back Kabuto-kun you can, as long as you swear not to say a word about tonight. Same for you, Kurenai-chan. The bespectacled boy sighed wearily. No, that's all right Orochimaru-sama. I don't have any family there so what do I have to go back to? Kurenai tearily nodded. Yeah, me too. Where will we go? Anko asked. Kogyoku settled on her shoulders to hear this while Sengo did the same with Naruto. Yamato looked at the snakes wide-eyed, afraid they would bite. First, we're going to settle some business in land of the sea with someone misusing my work. And then we'll go somewhere I know no one we can't trust will find us there. Where? Naruto asked. I'll tell you later. Not a good idea to say too much near here, and we should get out of here. Orochimaru answered. With no other words, he picked up Naruto and placed him on his back. Kogyoku got larger and let Anko and Kurenai ride her, with Sengo doing the same for Kabuto and Yamato. They started running or slithering away from Konoha, not sure when or if they'd ever see that village again. Orochimaru also created several shadow clones and had them run in several directions with extra summoned snakes to tag along, making it that much harder for anyone to find them. An hour later the kids had fallen asleep, and everyone on the move slowed down a little to not disturb them too much. Kogyoku stopped completely though, and turned her head around. Orochimaru, I smell someone coming up from behind. The pale Sannin placed Naruto on Sengo's back, getting ready to fight. He went off to get rid of this potential threat, only to find a Kumo nin running towards Land of Lightning. He would have done nothing about it, except he saw the burlap bag the Kumo nin carried with something moving inside it trying to get out. Remembering the meeting that had been going on, he suspected something foul and intercepted the ninja. That had better not be what I think you have in there. None of your business, freak. The Kumo ninja told him bitterly. Orochimaru pulled out Kusanagi and stabbed the man before he could get away. He then took the bag and opened it to find a bruised and crying little girl with white eyes. So, did you decide on your own to kidnap a child, or were you ordered to? F you. The Kumo nin answered, coughing up some blood. Orochimaru kicked his head, snapping his neck, then held the crying hurt girl. Don't worry, you're safe now. I'm Orochimaru. What's your name? Hi, Hinata. Well, Hinata-chan, want me to have someone take you home? He asked, and got worried when she looked even more frightened and shook her head no fiercely. Why, what's wrong? Uriwan-T, there, is bad. Okawa-san was good, but now gone. Everyone else hate me. Don't wanna go back. Please don't make me. She broke down after that and wept into his chest. Orochimaru then noticed that some of the bruises weren't as fresh as others, meaning she had been hurt before the kidnapping. I can't believe it. It sounds like some of the Hyuga like to beat up their own rather than just Naruto. That place keeps getting worse and worse. He calmed himself before he spoke to avoid upsetting Hinata. Don't worry, you'll stay with us in the meantime. We're going to find a home where bad things like that don't happen to kids like you. She gasped and hugged him. Thank you, thank you, thank you. No sweat. Now, get some rest and we can get out of here, far away from Konoha. He then looked at the dead Kumo shinobi. But first, a little something for whoever told him to do this. When the dead Kumo nin was found a few days later, it looked like a rock slide had happened and crushed him. The wound from a blade looked to be done by accident in the fall. Hinata's body couldn't be found, but the bag was found snagged on a branch in a river downstream, implying her body was lost at sea. And since the death appeared to be an act of kami rather than caused by Konoha, Kumo couldn't make a demand for a Hyuga death, sparing Hizashi. The Hyugas were grateful, but spared no time or effort to confirm Hinata's death. After a long run and a boat ride from the southern edge of Land of Fire's coastline, Orochimaru and his charges had reached the Land of the Sea. He himself had set up a lab there to attempt some things away from Konoha to ensure some secrets didn't leak out in case of spies, plus some direct access to aquatic resources helped. He hadn't been there in years, so another researcher named Amachi had been running it in the meanwhile. Is this where we're gonna stay, Jisen? Anko asked as she got out of the boat. Orochimaru shook his head. Can't. This would be one of the first places they'd check for me. We're here to see just what was done while I was away. Then we'll head for our new home. Where is that? Kurenai asked. I told you I'd tell you when we get there. Everyone got off the boat. Orochimaru and the two snakes led the 5 kids towards the hidden lab built by the shore, designed to look like a run-down building no one ever cared to renovate. At least on the surface. Inside it was everything a laboratory was supposed to be. Orochimaru had made it that way himself, using the old, hiding in plain sight, principle to make it so unlikely to be bothered with. And even if someone did bother to try and sneak inside, there were workers already inside who could get rid of them. Orochimaru led everyone inside while carrying Hinata. The poor girl had barely walked at all since she came into his company, and he suspected it was more because of shock or fear than her injuries. She said even less too, but she at least smiled when everyone tried to lift her spirits. Orochimaru led them through the corridors into the building, a faint trail of light bulbs guiding him into the research center. None of the kids asked where they were going since he already explained it to them, but they started to feel something was wrong here. Orochimaru sensed nothing, well used to surroundings such as this from decades of ninjahood. He came to a closed door that wasn't locked, so he opened it and stepped inside. Right away he wished he hadn't done that, to spare the children from the sight of the room's contents if nothing else. There were large glass containers that looked like oversized test tubes lined against one side of the room, each but 2 with a person inside it. The ages and genders varied, and out of all of them only one container had a glowing light on it, indicating something unique but not immediately obvious. There was also a table with various pieces of lab equipment and papers spread about. It looked like someone here had been doing some rather unorthodox human experimenting here, something the kids weren't supposed to see. What is this place? Kurenai asked. This was a lab to see how we could improve our ninjas' physical capabilities. Orochimaru answered. This wasn't what I was expecting though. Especially that, whatever that is. He then pointed to the glass tubes. Are they even alive? Yamato asked, having flashbacks to the experiments done on him for the past year and being the only one to walk away alive from it. Orochimaru carefully looked over each one. The one tank with the glowing light had a monitor that showed a faint heartbeat. He then noticed all the tanks had monitors too, but this one was the only one actually working. And judging by the size of the person inside, the test subject was a very young child, making the pale Sanin uneasy. This one is. I'm going to get her out of there. He checked everywhere for a latch of some kind, and found one near the top of the tank. He pulled it, and the liquid inside the container drained out, letting the captive inside sink to the bottom. Once it was drained, the glass casing opened up and Orochimaru pulled the small person out onto the floor. This test subject was indeed a young child, a girl close to Naruto and Hinata's age who couldn't possibly be more than half a year older at most. She had long purple hair and a pale complexion, but not albinoish like Orochimaru. She also didn't have any clothes on, so Orochimaru wrapped her in his jacket to keep her covered. In doing so, he saw a strange mark on her left shoulder that looked like 3 tomos inside a circle, resembling a seal of some sort. Is she okay? Naruto asked. I think, but I'm not sure. Somebody did something weird to her. Ah, Orochimaru-sama. Nice to have you drop by. A new voice said from a door to the left of the one everyone had entered from. Orochimaru turned to see a thin man with white hair and a long nose standing in a lab coat with his hands behind his back. Amachi, what have you been doing here? Orochimaru asked. Why, exactly what you ordered me to do. Trying to find new ways to enhance ninja physical skills and terrain adaptability. This is not what I had in mind. Orochimaru snapped, pointing to the glass tubes and the unconsciousness purple-haired girl. No, but it's even better. You see, I found a lost boy some time ago who has every unusual blood, with so much potential to be unleashed. Maybe even the first of a new Kekkei Genkai. Apparently he can actually shapeshift during times of bloodlust or stress, and to make it even better, with the right method, his blood can give those powers to others as well. Amachi told Orochimaru. Orochimaru admitted to himself the idea was an interesting one, but something about this bothered him. And you experimented on children too? How could you? Amachi shrugged. Well, in order for it to work, the blood must be injected into the jugular, and if the subject survives the transfer, a mark appears there. For children the survival rate appears to be the highest, so I had to work with young ones. But I've been running kind of low, so I'm glad you brought me some more. Now Orochimaru was mad. Don't even think about it. I'm trying to give these children a bright future, not one where others think less of them for whatever reason they have. Kogyoku and Sango got in front of the kids defensively and became anaconda-sized. Amachi was unintimidated. Don't you think they'd be better off with the gift I can give them? Think about it. A secondary source of chakra if the primary one runs dangerously low. And if the user gets close to death, a second stage is activated and the user gets the ability to transform into a second form, useful for terrain handling and combat purposes. What ninja wouldn't want that? You can't force this onto kids that don't want it. The Sannin replied. The researcher shrugged. They're children. They don't know what they want. I don't think I can let you keep doing this, Amachi. Orochimaru stated as he pulled out some explosive tags. He didn't light them since that might put the children in danger, but he did show them off. Guess I'll have to show you how effective my work can be. Amachi said as he swiftly pulled out a syringe and threw it at the group. Before anyone could block it, the needle struck Anko in her jugular, making her scream. Anko-chan. Everyone yelled as Orochimaru pulled the syringe out. Anko kept yelling and squirming on the floor. It hurts. It hurts. The beginnings of the curse mark started to form around the puncture wound like a burn. While they were distracted with Anko's agony, Amachi took the opportunity to get several more syringes and hit all the remaining children in the jugular with great aim. All of them fell screaming and writhing as their blood burned internally. Kogyoku and Sango wrapped around the long-nosed researcher and began constricting him tightly. Orochimaru stood in front of him. Why the hell did you do that? And while we're at it, how were you able to? Well, you needed to be convinced my work has value. As for how, well, I guess you and your snake friends were just too slow to do anything about it. Forgive us, Orochimaru-sama. We were more focused on Anko-chan than the others for that brief moment. Sango said regretfully. I was at fault too for that. Amachi, tell me you have an antidote for this. Amachi tried to hold in a laugh but failed and laughed loudly. Now why the hell would I create an antidote for a power-up? What do you think I am? Stupid. Orochimaru was really disgusted with this man. Long ago, he thought he was rather insightful and quite possibly capable of opening new frontiers for Konoha's ninjas. Apparently that was true, but he used it for the wrong reasons. Had he been doing this to willing subjects or adults, Orochimaru might not have minded too much. In time he would have probably used this procedure to give the village's shinobi an extra edge against their enemies. But the Sannin had several children under his care and anybody who tried to hurt them was automatically an enemy. Kogyoku, Sango, finish him off. The two snakes hissed happily and tightened their grip on him more and more until he was crushed thinner than a used-up toothpaste tube. Orochimaru checked on all the kids at once, first noting they had stopped screaming, just breathing deeply and asleep. On each one of their neck bases was a curse mark, 3 tomos inside a circle. Even Naruto had one. Damn, I thought maybe the Kyuubi's chakra could filter it out of his system. Wonder why it didn't. Truth was, at this point of time all the Kyuubi's chakra could do for Naruto was heal physical wounds and nothing more. That would change as he got older, but for now to do more would be dangerous to his health. So the curse mark was there to stay. Orochimaru felt there was only one thing he could do here. With the two snakes' help, he pulled all the children, even the extra girl, back outside and went in to recover any info regarding this curse mark before setting the place on fire with explosive tags. He didn't see any of Amachi's assistants inside, and while that bothered him, he figured it was probably for the best. Less trouble to deal with. He then got them back on the boat and headed back for the mainland. Night came and Anko was the first to recover, sitting upright around a campfire. She looked around to see Orochimaru sitting on a log watching over them all with Kogyoku and Sango, and also the new girl who seemed to be awake already. What happened, Jisun? It's a long story, Anko-chan. I'll tell you when the others wake up too so I don't have to repeat it. Orochimaru told her, then offered her a piece of dango he bought in the last town. Want some? She eagerly took it, but ate slowly. Hi, I'm Isaribi, the new girl said to Anko. Sorry you had to get the seal too. Seal? Anko asked. Then her eyes darted to the mark on the other purple-headed girl's shoulder. Anko tenderly touched her shoulder and felt the flesh was soft and painful to touch, making her pull her fingers back and wince. What happened to me? Orochimaru sighed. I'm sorry, Anko-chan, but that man gave you something bad and I don't know how to get rid of it. How bad? Bad enough that some people could call you a monster for it. Anko shrugged. They already do that. What else is new? Well, according to what I've been reading, this mark gives you a chakra boost when you run low, but it means you're more likely to act violently when that happens. And there's a second stage involved if you almost die, giving you the ability to transform into some kind of creature when you need to. Orochimaru explained. Anko blinked in surprise. And there's nothing you can do about it? He shook his head. Maybe I can get Jiraiya to seal its effects, but I haven't seen him in years so I can't promise that. Anko then looked over Naruto and the others, who started showing signs of waking up soon. Then I'll use it to defend my Otuto. If I'm stuck with this, might as well give it a good use. Anko-chan, I wouldn't. Orochimaru started to protest, then thought it over, and slowly nodded. If that's what you want. The others woke up and Orochimaru explained to them what happened and what they involuntarily acquired. Not surprisingly, they were unhappy, but they had the same thoughts about it as Anko did. Orochimaru hoped that they wouldn't come to regret this later on. About 3 weeks after leaving Konoha, Orochimaru had finally reached his destination, a hidden underground chamber in Land of Rice Paddies. In that time he had kept a careful eye on all the children with him, still upset at what had happened to them in Land of the Sea. The only reason it happened at all was because he hadn't been expecting it the first time and he was occupied the next time. Another reason might be that the syringes Amachi used were designed like Senbon needles more than standard syringes with automatic injection features built in, and he did always have great aim when it came to projectiles. Orochimaru cursed himself, wishing he had only been more prepared for the long-nosed researcher to actually try something. But he wasn't, and now all the kids in his care might suffer from it. So far he hadn't seen anything negative from what he dubbed the curse mark outside an occasional brief flash of pain. He wondered if that was meant to encourage the person to use it or just a nasty side effect. The scroll with all the info regarding it didn't say much about it. It did however come with several sealed-up samples of the blood-based formula used to give one the mark and abilities. Orochimaru kept it around in the hopes of someday reverse engineering it and ridding the kids of it. Or at the very least, have a better understanding of how it works. For the time being he ignored that and went inside the hideout. Since it was quite dark underground he used a fire jutsu to light the candles left on the walls to illuminate the place better. This place reminds me of those haunted houses you see in movies. Kabuto stated. Why did we come here? Kurenai asked, eyes darting around as if looking for something. A long time ago, me and my teammates found this abandoned place during an A-rank mission that was taking longer than we expected it to. We used it to hide ourselves and ambush our enemies. Afterwards, we agreed this would be our secure location to come to if we needed to go somewhere private. So only Jiraiya or Tsunade would think to come here. The one adult present explained. Are they coming? Naruto asked, not knowing who they were or his connection to them. Orochimaru sadly sighed. No, they aren't. They don't know I'm here and I'd rather they don't find out yet. If I saw either of them soon I'd be very mad at them. How come? All the children asked. Orochimaru wasn't going to like this, but knew it needed to be done. Naruto, I wasn't supposed to be the one to watch over you all these years. Jiraiya and Tsunade were. Naruto looked surprised. Then why didn't they? Orochimaru shrugged. I'm not entirely sure. I personally think Jiraiya just didn't want to juggle you and his work so he chose his work first, and Tsunade was more interested in doing her own thing than taking some responsibility. If they have other reasons I'd love to hear them, but that's all I can assume for now. Several of the kids frowned at hearing this, but Naruto just hung his head. You okay, Naruto? Said Blonde lifted his head showing off a grin, with some small tears in the corners of his eyes. I'm fine Jisen. At least you're here for me. Always will kid. You can count on it. How long we gonna be here? Hinata asked. Not too long. Just long enough for me to check up an old idea of mine and see if we can go ahead with it. Orochimaru told them with a grin, making them all feel better. Later that evening, Orochimaru was seated at an old desk looking over some old papers he brought with him, with some storage scrolls next to him as well. Anko, Kurenai, Isaribi, Kabuto, and Yamato were currently looking around the place to get a better feel for it and make sure there were no unwelcome surprises there, with Kogyoku tagging along in case there were some. Hinata was currently taking a nap with Sengo curled up to be the pillow, resting peacefully. Orochimaru was glad to see that since while the girl had been healing she kept having bad dreams, presumably about what had hurt her in the first place. Naruto was awake and trying to see what Orochimaru was interested in at the moment. Whatcha doing Jisen? Going over something I haven't in a long time. Like what? You probably wouldn't understand. It's boring grown-up stuff. The snake Sanin answered. Then why are you doing it if it's boring? Naruto innocently asked. Boring for you, not me. And hopefully, not the daimyo of this country either. Orochimaru corrected. Why? Let's just say that if he agrees with me, then we'll be secure for years to come. Orochimaru explained as best he could without revealing too much. I can't tell you more than that, sorry. Naruto looked upset but didn't argue, and decided to just pace around until the others returned. Excuse me, Daimyo-sama, but you have some visitors. A guard at the place of the daimyo of Land of Rice Paddies told the ruler as he entered the throne room. Visitors? I'm not expecting anyone. Who are they? The ruler of the country asked. He was tall, thin, with brown hair beginning to gray, and a small beard, wearing a black royal kimono with a pattern for a rice farm sewn onto it. The one adult present claims to be one of the Sannin of Land of Fire. His physical description matches that of the snake summoner, and the fact that he has talking snakes with him adds to that confirmation. The daimyo rubbed his chin in thought. Interesting, a Sannin wishes to see me. Wonder what for. He then caught something else. Why did you say, the one adult present? He has several children in his care, daimyo-sama. 7 to be exact. The guard answered. Why would he bring children here? I don't know, but I feel that may be part of whatever he seeks an audience with over. The daimyo thought over it some more. Very well, let them enter. Tell the guards they should keep watch but not overly hostile until any threat is apparent. The guard nodded and left the chamber. A moment later Orochimaru entered, followed by Naruto, Hinata, Isaribi, Anko, Kurenai, Kabuto, Yamato, and the 2 snakes. Sannin-san, I presume? The ruler asked. Orochimaru nodded. My name is Orochimaru, for your convenience. If you don't mind, may I ask for you to remove your summons, as they may be viewed as a threat here. Orochimaru shook his head. That is non-negotiable, daimyo-sama. These 2 are here to protect my 2 godchildren and their friends, and I'm not getting rid of their security while in new territory. As long as nobody moves to strike these children, you have nothing to fear from these 2 serpents. The daimyo seemed reluctant but later nodded. With that out of the way, to what do I owe the pleasure of this visit from one of the most esteemed shinobi in the known world? To be direct, I wish to start a hidden village here. The ruler flinched in surprise, never expecting to hear something like that. A hidden village? Here. Don't get me wrong. I've been hoping to get one started myself so all the shinobi clans here have a place to live and practice their art. But why would you be interested in such a thing? Especially considering the Sannin are connected to Konoha and Land of Fire. I've wiped my hands off that place, and wish to have a new home for those in my care. Konoha is not fit for them. And since I'm more familiar with this country than any other, besides Land of Fire obviously, I could easily call this one my next home. Also, I don't think I could join a hidden village that already exists without alerting Konoha to my presence and thus undoing all my efforts to guard these kids. Orochimaru explained. The daimyo looked confused. You make it sound like Konoha is a threat to these kids. I find that hard to believe. Orochimaru gave a brief look over the kids, who looked up at him, staying silent as they had been told to do. He then turned back to the ruler of the country. Daimyo-sama, what would you do if I told you each one of these children, to some degree, some more than others, had their human rights violated? The daimyo looked mortified. Violated? Someone would do such a thing to children? He then took a deep breath and closed his eyes, recomposing himself, before opening them again and clasping his hands together. You have my attention. Now explain. Orochimaru grinned lightly, but then lost it as he began his story. Well, to start off lightly, a man named Danzo that I knew back in Konoha helped fund research to improve shinobi abilities. Apparently that was a front for involuntarily subjecting orphans, and even kids with families if he could get away with it, to tests in attempts to give them kekkei genkeis. Most did not survive, but I have 3 survivors here with me. Kabuto and Yamato raised their hands to indicate themselves, but Kurenai did not. He patted her on the shoulder though. This girl here so far was not actually used yet, but next in line for a test. As far as we can tell, that is. It is possible he may have done something to her and she blocked out the memory. Kurenai looked frightened now. Orochimaru then got behind Isaribi. This girl here was kept captive inside a glass tube in an island lab where a man I once thought of as a respectable colleague did the same thing as Danzo, just more specialized. Making me suspect the 2 were in cahoots. Anyway, he forced a potentially lethal ability onto her, and did the same with all the children here. I wasn't expecting him to do something like that, so I couldn't react quick enough to stop him. Pardon me, Orochimaru-sama. The daimyo interjected. Are you telling me all these children had a keke genkai forced onto them? The Sanin nodded. How bad is this keke genkai that's gotten you worked up? According to what I've looked over, it's not entirely without benefit, but also not without cost. Once acquired, the victim is in a lot of pain for several days, with the majority of the pain lasting only 4 minutes. After that, it's more like a pulled muscle that won't let you forget it's there. And it sort of enhances one's berserker tendencies when in a tight spot, meaning they may put themselves in unnecessarily risky situations. The daimyo thought it over. Is that the worst of this? Because, forgive me if I'm wrong, this doesn't sound as tragic as you make it out to be. The older kids frowned at hearing this, but Orochimaru held out his arms. Settle down, guys, he doesn't know the whole story yet. He then turned to look at the daimyo again. Well, onto a larger issue before I drop a bombshell. This girl here, indicating Hinata, was kidnapped from her home at night and for some reason village security couldn't stop it. He suspected that was his fault for setting 2 fires that night. I rescued her, and found signs of physical abuse from before the kidnapping took place. She doesn't like to talk about it, but from what I've heard her family is full of child beaters. The daimyo silently gasped and looked to Hinata for confirmation or denial. Her frightened, crying face trying to hide in the adult's legs said enough for him. And what else? You indicated something worse. Orochimaru sighed. Here's where Konoha gets bad as a whole, daimyo-sama. You see, legally I only have one godchild, this young girl, indicating Anko, but since this boy's godparents, indicating Naruto, were too busy enjoying themselves to take responsibility for him, I volunteered to watch him until they decided to shape up and take responsibility. For 3 years, this young boy has been picked on by no less than 90% of Konoha. I'd say 80%, but that would be giving them the benefit of the doubt and I can't do that anymore. Sometimes kids get bullied by other kids. That's natural. The daimyo commented. Orochimaru narrowed his eyes. I didn't say he was victimized by just kids. I said the whole city. Adults too. If the daimyo had been holding anything just then, he would have dropped it. Adults? Bullying a 3-year-old? Why? How? For how? They pretty much had an attack on sight mindset regarding him. They wouldn't kill him, probably because I got there in time to stop it. And when I was there, they would treat him like he was Kami's biggest mistake, and sometimes my presence wouldn't deter them. I haven't left him unguarded by myself or one of these snakes in about 2 years because they'll take any chance to make him wish he was never born. There were times I did. Naruto quietly mumbled, but everyone heard it and the hurt in his voice. Hinata and Anko, the closest ones to him, hugged him to make him feel better. Isaribi wanted to, but didn't see any room for her to get a hold of him. Orochimaru stayed silent for a brief moment after that, but then continued. Anyway, the townspeople, mostly civilians but some shinobi too, several deemed honorable by the populace, took every chance they could to make Naruto's life hell. They did the same thing to my first godchild too, just because she's associated with him. And the adults in the village told their children to stay away from both of them or hurt them as much as possible, thinking kids could get away with what the parents couldn't. The daimyo scowled. And what possible explanation could they have for this atrocious behavior? I can't say it in front of the kids as they are not ready to handle that information yet. Orochimaru told him, then turned to the kids. If you all would like to go outside and see the courtyards for a moment you can now. They thanked him and went outside, with Kogyoku and Sango following. Before Orochimaru could speak up, the daimyo did. On second thought, it doesn't matter. There is no excuse good enough to justify what you've just told me. Daimyo-sama, what I'm about to say is Konoha's deepest secret, one that's illegal to talk about. But since I'm not a Konoha nin anymore, their laws don't apply to me, so I can tell you and the kids when they can handle it. You see, our previous Hokage sealed the rampaging Kyuubi no Kitsune inside the blonde boy, and almost everyone holds him accountable for what the fox did 3 years ago. The daimyo's hands trembled in rage, and then he stood up and called for a messenger. Inform everyone that we will no longer hire Konoha shinobi for any work. If they ask why, tell them I've reason to question their rationality, and say no more on the subject. The messenger nodded and left. So you'll help us? Orochimaru asked. Tell me more about your proposal for a new hidden village. The daimyo said with a grin. In a flat valley in land of rice paddies, construction began on a secret project. Well, that depends on how one defines the word secret. In one way, it was no secret at all, as anyone could see the construction taking place if they happened to be in the area. It was simply a new town being built to provide homes for a growing population and maybe provide more farmland too. Nothing out of the ordinary except some defensive walls and guarded passageways in and out of the area, but those were deemed needed to make it more secure until completion. But on the other hand, the reason of the construction, along with half of it, were completely unknown to anyone outside the country, and many inside it too. Yes, providing homes was a big part of why this town was being built. But these were homes for shinobi, and no one not involved would suspect a thing. And that was exactly what the planners wanted. Orochimaru and the daimyo of Land of Rice Paddies stood in front of a completed building looking over everything and their layout designs. The kids were back at the palace being watched over by the snakes and some trustworthy caretakers. So the Sannin was free to be away for the moment. Things are looking good so far, aren't they, Orochimaru-sama? The daimyo asked. He nodded, smiling. Yes, indeed they are. I'm glad I keep that little pet project of mine around now. Back when Orochimaru had been an academy student, one of the assignments had been for all the kids to design a hidden village if they were the ones who made it. His did well, but overall none of the class had the right idea regarding what was essential for a hidden village. Some students had been frivolous and designed a metropolis designed more fit for civilians, while others missed out on several details mandatory for making the village be considered hidden or operable. After the assignment was over, he kept the design with him and spent years trying to improve upon it, mostly to satisfy his own curiosity and creative urges. Now he had a chance to actually do something with the idea. He was no architect, but a real one with shinobi experience would be proud of his concept. On the surface, the whole village would look like a completely normal civilian village. Walls would be around for defense against threats, both natural and man-made, but that wasn't suspicious since conflict was common and several civilian cities had that feature now. There would be suburbs, apartment complexes, hospitals, hotels, schools, dojos and gyms, parks, shopping centers, and entertainment centers. A casino and a public bathing area were added in too, as sort of an homage to the other two Sannin when Orochimaru initially worked on the design, and saw no real reason to take them out. But under the surface, that was the beauty of all this. Underneath the city, and under the sewage system too, were secret chambers, bunkers, and hallways for shinobi to learn and train in. There was even a hidden academy and several training centers scattered everywhere, each designed to help in a particular area. Some in taijutsu, some in kenjutsu, some in ninjutsu, and some in genjutsu. This way, the shinobi of this village could train to their heart's content without fear of someone from the outside ever finding them or even knowing what was going on. The dojos could be used too to get them used to training above ground, as long as they didn't use ninjutsu there. There was also an idea that the shinobi here only wear their hitai on the job, preferably out of town, rather than walk around in public so visitors wouldn't notice. With this in mind, it would be the one true hidden shinobi village, by virtue of being hidden in plain sight. The daimyo had been satisfied with the conceptual design and provided what he considered the perfect location for the village. A flat stretch of land big enough to hold Konoha if it had to, surrounded by mountains to the north and northeast. A gorge with a rapid river bordered the complete west and a forest provided the remaining boundary. The mountains were not completely impassable, but a route being worked on would make it more convenient. A bridge was being constructed over the gorge and 2 routes were being paved through the forest. Since the village was not trying to look like a hidden shinobi village, they needed these routes to make it more believable. They were being made in a compass fashion to make them easier to monitor those should something go amiss. Construction might take some time since we aren't letting too many in on this. The daimyo commented. So far the only help they had were from construction companies and shinobi with masonry skills who intended to settle down here when finished. If we could let another village in on this, then maybe things can go faster and we could have a ready ally. Reasonable, but who? And do I really need to say Konoha is not an option? Orochimaru responded. Of course not. I was thinking more along the lines of Taki, Hoshi, or Kusa. The daimyo told him. Orochimaru arched an eyebrow. Them rather than Suna or Kiri or something. Well, the 5 great shinobi villages might have a lot of power backing them, but the lesser ones are more likely to bond with a fellow small village. Allying ourselves with them will make forming alliances with other villages easier too. And they're eager for business since they're often overlooked by clients in favor of the bigger ones. The Sannin nodded. Maybe, but having one of the major villages help might be a good thing. Especially if we need the manpower against Konoha. This time the daimyo arched an eyebrow. Do you intend to go to war with your old home? At the moment no. However, if they happen to discover my group is here, Naruto-kun and Anko-chan in particular, I'm sure they will cause trouble over it. And I'd rather be prepared for the worst. Suna would be the best option as they're the closest. Iwa a close second, but I'd rather not risk their involvement either if I can help it. Because of young Naruto, am I right? The daimyo asked, having been told about Naruto's heritage to explain his situation better. Yes. Until I'm certain of their overall attitude towards Minato, I can't verify if they would be a threat or not. Most likely they are, since Minato did not die that long ago and one could not ask without raising suspicions they would look into. It might be years before anyone can. Orochimaru stated. Reasonable. The daimyo mused. So shall we stick with Suna and maybe 1 or 2 of the smaller villages? Let's see how much we can do on our own first. The Sannin suggested. Besides, the underground network has to be completed first and it's best if only our forces has a good feel for that area. What we really need are some established clans to settle down here. Maybe some civilians and their kids will be willing to learn to become shinobis, but some existing clans and Kekkei Genkei will give us some credibility when we make ourselves known. Why not go around other places to find people and families that have nowhere to go? Not fugitives that would sell you out, but desperate people with something to prove and willing to settle down somewhere. You know, like you were when you came to me. Orochimaru thought about it, and shrugged. Why not? Orochimaru later made it back to the palace and gathered the kids together. Okay everyone, I'm going to be going on a trip for a bit to try and find us more allies. You all will be staying here, with Kogyoku and Sengo watching over you with Daimyo-sama. Do as they say. Everyone nodded, and he handed Anko something that looked like a paper bomb. Hopefully nothing bad will happen, but just in case something does happen, put some blood on this. That'll summon Manda to protect you guys, but it'll only work once. Do not use it for anything short of an emergency, got it? Anko nodded and pocketed the paper. Good. I'll be back as soon as I can. Stay safe. With that, the snake Sannin left for parts unknown. So what do we do in the meantime? Kabuto asked after the adult who watched over them these past few weeks left. I guess we train. Any better ideas? Anko asked. Are you sure that's a good idea? Kurenai wondered, gingerly touching her curse mark. Ever since they got it, the kids were afraid to train, thinking it would control them if they trained. We've gotta learn to deal with it sooner or later. It's not like they're just gonna vanish with soap and water, Nai-chan. Anko replied. And if anything happens the rest can stop them, right? Naruto asked. Exactly, Tudo. Anko stated. Rather than keep up the discussion, Yamato just went right to doing push-ups, and Naruto, Hinata, and Isaribi joined in. Anko joined too, and after a moment so did Kabuto and Kurenai. Nothing bad happening so far regarding their marks. And hopefully it would stay that way. Orochimaru had been traveling for 2 days now, not entirely sure just where he should be going. He couldn't go right to an established ninja village and ask if anyone there wanted to move. Clans weren't allowed to do just up and do that for security reasons. And he couldn't go up to bandits and rogues making them offers since their very nature was based more on greed than loyalty. The best idea he had was going to civilian towns and asking if there were any families with shinobi potential that wanted to take the chance to use it. So now here he was, in a random town in Land of Fire, taking a break and having a drink before going out again. Why are so many ideas easier said than done? He asked himself. I've been trying to figure that out myself. Another guy's voice said behind him. Orochimaru immediately recognized it, and slowly turned around to see Jiraiya, along with Tsunade and a brunette he didn't recognize. Oh, hi Dobi. What brings you here? That's my line Tem. Jiraiya told him. Orochimaru, we came to help out. That's what teammates do. Tsunade said gently. A little late don't ya think? He paused to take another gulp. Hey Tsunade, you actually took time off from your eternal binge to see me. I don't know if I should be flattered or worried. I heard from Sensei what happened and I got a hold of Tsunade here. We figured you might want some friendly company. Jiraiya explained. Orochimaru arched an eyebrow. What exactly did Sensei say? In his words. Jiraiya cleared his throat. He said that you had a tragic lose and took it rather unwell, and just vanished. He also told me to tell you that he hopes you'll come back when you can get yourself sorted out. Orochimaru glared. That's it. Word for word. Jiraiya nodded, and Orochimaru clenched his fists. That is one of the most apathetic things I've ever heard. We're sorry for you Orochi. Tsunade butted in. We heard you lost your goddaughter and your work to some maniac. But you shouldn't take it out on Sensei or the village. And I wouldn't, if both had done more to help Anko-chan and Naruto instead of just. Wait, did you just say, Naruto? Jiraiya asked, caught off guard. The snake Sanin nodded. Yeah, Minato's son. The kid you two were supposed to watch over but never did. Who did you think was watching over him all this time? The toad and slug Sanins exchanged a worried look before turning back to their teammate. Orochimaru, Sensei told me he was killed just after the sealing. Couldn't handle the strain. Orochimaru wanted to puke, and it had nothing to do with the alcohol in his system. He told you Naruto died? Jiraiya nodded. Yeah, and then I told Tsunade. You mean, he didn't? Orochimaru shook his head. Nope, he's still alive. Not that Konoha wants him to be. I faked his and my goddaughter's death so I could get them away from that child-beating shitstain of a village. Tsunade started to cry. My godson is alive. Can I please see him? Orochimaru thought about it. I'll let you two see him, under a few conditions. First, you can't breathe a word of what I'm doing to Sarutobi, period. They nodded without a hint of protest, even Tsunade's assistant. Second, you need to help me find some trustable ninjas and clans to make allies with and are able to move about, so I can protect the kids better. For the record, I learned that the current Mizukage is about to issue a Kekkei Genkei purge of Kiri. More like some kind of genocide if you ask me. Jiraiya said quietly. Orochimaru smirked. Then if we get there first and offer them solace, we can get the people and numbers I need. Good. So let's head out tomorrow for Kiri. But I want to see Naruto. Tsunade protested. You waited 3 years, you can wait another week or so. I'm getting these shinobi first so Naruto won't be such a target anymore. You make it sound like horrible things have happened to him. Tsunade's apprentice commented. The look on the pale Sanin's face disturbed them all. I'll tell you more about that tomorrow. That way none of you will be unable to sleep tonight. So, are you gonna help me or not? The 3 Sanin along with Shizune had reached Land of Water, with no intention of staying there for long. They would get this little task over with, hopefully with good results, and go where they really wanted to be, land of rice paddies and with Naruto. Jiraiya and Tsunade had heard what had happened in their absence and were ashamed of themselves, even though they were not entirely at fault for their absence. Still, that didn't make it any easier on their consciences. When they woke up the morning after a chance reunion with Orochimaru, Jiraiya and Tsunade were all ears about what had happened to Naruto. Shizune was too, even though she never met the boy, just his mother through Tsunade. None of them liked what they heard. Flashback. Okay, Orochimaru, tell us everything you wouldn't last night about Minato's son. Tsunade demanded first thing in the morning. The three Sannin were seated in a hotel room at the moment on one of the beds. Well, where to start? Naruto's alive but has been hurt repeatedly his whole life. Since you two weren't there to watch over him, I took your place and just couldn't take it anymore and took him away from there. I faked his death to ensure no one could come after him. Why don't you give us the unsummarized version? Jiraiya asked. I will, but first, you two have some things I want you to tell me too. Orochimaru insisted. You first, Jiraiya. Even if Sensei told you Naruto has been dead all these years, why is it in 3 years you didn't stop to visit me in the village? Even to chat. If you had, then you'd see the truth then. What excuse do you have for not doing that? Jiraiya tried to steel himself, but slumped and sighed wearily. I wish I could give you one, but I can't. You know I've never been one for visiting just for pleasantries. I just figured you were content in what you were doing and interrupting you just for a quick hi didn't seem worth it. One question though, if Sensei told us Naruto was dead, what has he been telling you about us? Nothing about Tsunade except he couldn't get a response from her, but he said you were prioritizing your work and personally felt Naruto was better off with me anyway. Orochimaru explained. Why would he lie so much? Shizune asked. Orochimaru shook his head slowly. I have no idea. He did several things to help Naruto out, but why would he set us up like this? I just wish I knew. I would have done something about it. Tsunade said quietly, full of regret. There was little you could do that I couldn't, Tsunade, except heal him better. And with how he got hurt, he would have needed it. The snake Sannin mentioned. Tsunade was afraid to ask how bad the damage was, but luckily she didn't have to. He's been burned, stabbed, cut, hit with rocks, punched, kicked, almost drowned or thrown off buildings. All more than once, and all within the first 3 years of his life. Tsunade teared up and buried her head in her knees. I've ever heard of anything so monstrous in my life, and I'm a veteran shinobi. That's it. I'm officially and completely severing all ties to Konoha from here on out. I'm going to confront Sensei about this and most likely do the same thing. Jiraiya added forcefully. Inspiration struck Orochimaru just then. Actually, Jiraiya, I've got an idea for you. Utsi, I'm working on a certain project to help my kids and could probably use Tsunade to check over them regularly. You can too, but maybe you could also play a part for our sensei. Let me guess, you want me to be a double agent? Jiraiya stated. Exactly. The snake Sannin answered. Whatever info you give sensei, you give us too. And this way, we can find out if Konoha's doing anything suspicious. For example, Jiraiya asked for clarification. Well, like whether or not anyone's trying to find Naruto, or maybe they have hostile intentions towards the new hidden village. Anything that could prove more risk for Naruto later on. I agree, it's a good plan. Tsunade claimed. Jiraiya sighed. Alright, it won't be easy, but I'll try. But if I don't like what Sensei says when I ask why he lied, then the deal's off. Orochimaru nodded. Well, I think that's enough for now. I'm going to be heading towards Land of Water soon. Wanna come along? End flashback. The trip had taken them a while, but they reached their destination. Jiraiya was infuriated the whole time while Tsunade appeared downright depressed. Orochimaru had a good idea why for both. Jiraiya felt betrayed by Sarutobi and pissed at himself for never taking the time to confront Naruto's status from someone else. Even if he did trust the old man, he probably should have confirmed this info with another. So much more could have been done on Naruto's behalf if Jiraiya had known he was alive. And as for Tsunade, she felt like a failure to Minato and Kushina since she hadn't even tried to do anything after Jiraiya came to her with grim news 3 years ago. She had gone to great lengths to care for Dan's niece Shizune, but hadn't gone to be with Kushina when the due date was near and thus could have helped him as planned. Tsunade felt just plain horrible over that. Finding their way to Kiri wasn't too hard for them, mostly because they had been there before for their own Chunin exams years ago. Not to mention the fog was a dead giveaway they were heading in the right direction. When they got to the edges of the village, they hid in some trees rather than just enter. Shizune was currently hiding in a small den in the ground they could get back to later. Jiraiya summoned 2 small toads. You two check out the area. Let me know if you spot anything hinting to killing a lot of the residents. The toads departed and entered the misty village. You sure it'll be that obvious? Tsunade asked. You can't have whole clans be slaughtered and keep it a secret. Jiraiya commented. They waited for a while, but not as long as they initially expected when the toads came back. We saw a ton of people tied to posts being kept in some sort of prison yard, as if they were going to be executed. Most of them looked unconscious and none smelled dead, but we couldn't get close enough to confirm that with the guards around there. Jiraiya shared a look with his teammates. Not very discreet. I know this village has taken a turn towards being more vicious lately, but I figured they wouldn't make a spectacle out of something like this. Well, let's go see them ourselves and make them an offer. Orochimaru suggested. There are guards posted just so you know, so it won't be that simple. The toad told them. We've got our ways. Orochimaru commented with a grin. When the Sannin snuck towards the wall surrounding the prison yard, Tsunade summoned 2 slugs and had them approach the nearest guards. Once the guards saw the gastropods, they spewed some non-lethal toxins at them, knocking them unconscious for about 2 hours. Tsunade and her slugs repeated this one more time on another pair of guards to make their entry less noticeable. Once they felt confident, the 3 shinobi sneaked inside. There they saw numerous people of various ages and genders tied up like they were going to be crucified. Some of them even had blindfolds on, implying they had dojutsus. There were even a few children and at least one pregnant woman tied up here, showing that the current Mizukage was completely apathetic to them all. None of them looked dead, but few of them even looked conscious now. Dear Kami, Tsunade gasped. Why are they doing such a thing? For some reason, the Mizukage began spreading anti-Kekkei Genkai propaganda here, claiming it's a crime of nature and a sign of demonic heritage. Considering I once heard that Kekkei Genkais originated from Jinchurikis, I could understand that, but they've gone so far as to make it a witch hunt here. Personally, I believe that the Mizukage is intimidated by them all. Jiraiya quietly thought out loud. Well, I don't care about that. Let's see if they're willing to hear us out. Orochimaru stated. He then carefully and quietly approached one of the conscious prisoners, followed by his teammates. Who are you? What do you want? The prisoner quietly asked, more out of fear than anything else. This one was a man with a white shirt, a navy blue hakama, and no footwear on. His hair was blue tinted black and cut really short.